I think that he thought that it was going to be smooth sailing into the season. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows how to get in shape. He knows how he feels when he's at his best and what it takes. But we're seeing and he's seeing that it takes a full spring training to really prepare for the season. And I think he didn't say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these injuries, the adductor injury, has to do with him rushing back to be ready for the season. So it's all snowballing on top of him, and we're seeing that again now. And this is supposed to be the time. It's already June. It's supposed to be the time that we see him regain his form and start to take off and become the second half pitcher that he's supposed to be. It's not the second half, but on his way there. And we haven't seen that yet, and that's because of the injuries and the rough start to the season.
Welcome into another edition of On the Record, where we preview upcoming series for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Today, we are joined by Shayna Rubin, who covers the San Francisco Giants for the San Francisco Chronicle. Of course, we have the Diamondbacks and Giants facing off here for a 3-game series over the next few days. Shayna, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I feel like I have to start with Blake Snell, Shayna. He's sort of the story with the Giants, it feels like right now. Obviously, when he has been pitching, it hasn't been great. He has an ERA of 9.53, and he also left his start yesterday against the New York Yankees. Appears to be headed for the injured list for the second time this season. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, it's been a frustrating beginning or tenure with the Giants. I don't know if there's another word to explain it. He's alluded recently to the fact that a little regret with how his offseason went, and that's not to say that he's upset about the money or about the circumstance, but sort of he's re-understood the value of going to spring training. And I think that he thought that it was going to be smooth sailing into the season. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows how to get in shape. He knows how he feels when he's at his best and what it takes. But we're seeing and he's seeing that it takes a full spring training to really prepare for the season. And I think he didn't say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these injuries, the adductor injury, has to do with him rushing back to be ready for the season. So it's all snowballing on top of him, and we're seeing that again now. And this is supposed to be the time. It's already June. It's supposed to be the time that we see him regain his form and start to take off and become the second half pitcher that he's supposed to be. It's not the second half, but on his way there. And we haven't seen that yet, and that's because of the injuries and the rough start to the season.
We've got a kind of a similar story in Arizona with the Diamondbacks signing Jordan Montgomery. I guess they took a little bit of a different approach. They had Montgomery make a couple of starts in AAA before starting his season. But even Montgomery has made comments in recent days about how he said the other day that he used to hate spring training and now he loves spring training. He's starting to see kind of the value of it. Sounds pretty similar to what Snell has said. Do you think the Giants take some responsibility here, that maybe they should have given him a little bit more of a runway rather than, because he opened the year with the Giants, right? They just had him kind of start right on, I don't know if it was opening day or shortly thereafter, but they didn't have him start in the minors or have more of a soft landing like the Diamondbacks did with Montgomery.
Yeah, I think the circumstance was unprecedented to a point that I don't know if there's any blame to be had either way. I think that Blake Snell probably thought that he didn't need to do that. And I don't know if it's more on him, but I think that they would probably defer to him on what he thought was best for him. But I think the fact that it's just such a strange circumstance and for this team in particular, and I'm curious just from the Diamondbacks' perspective if it appeared that having Montgomery go to AAA helped at all, or if there was any difference in having that runway as opposed to what Blake Snell did, which is pitch on his own, throw to some of his teammates, and then that's about it. But I guess, yeah, I'm curious the difference in if there was any sort of different result on either end from your perspective. But it's it's definitely been it's from a Giants perspective, it's definitely been appeared unprecedented in the way that they've had to sort of handle this, because it's just catching up with injuries all the time.
Oddly enough, Montgomery actually made his first start of the season against the Giants, and he did pitch pretty well. He didn't look rusty out of the gate. I guess it's kind of more recently where his struggles have set in. The Diamondbacks wound up winning that game 17-1. Which is certainly an odd outcome. But let's get into this series that we have coming up here this week. Montgomery is scheduled to pitch in this series on Wednesday for the D-backs. Of course, Snell will not be pitching in this series for the Giants. Shayna, the Giants come in 29-31. Seemed like they were in a decent position, I guess, maybe as of a few days ago, but I guess after getting swept over the weekend by the Yankees, things maybe feel a little bit less steady at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of their season, is they've been 500 team through and through. Kind of when they get up and jump a little bit over that, they find a way to fall back down, and they're a little beat up. They don't have Michael Conforto. They might get him back on this trip. They don't have Nick Ahmed. They lost Lamont Wade, who is arguably one of the better hitters in the league right now, before he got injured. The starting pitching, not even just Blake Snell, but as a whole, has fallen short, and that was supposed to be their strength. That was supposed to be what set them apart in the division. The division's tough, and a lot of that's fallen on the bullpen. So the numbers, bullpen wise, look ugly because they've had to eat a lot of innings, and the bullpen's been good in high leverage situations, but not necessarily when they've been thrust into a situation where they have to. But today's game, the Giants will have a bullpen game. They'll have Spencer Howard, I think, eating the bulk, but it's I think the story of the season so far is it's been really topsy turvy. But if you look at what was expected and what's wound up happening, it's that the pitching performance has been subpar compared to expectations. So if we take a step back here and look at how things might change, it would have to look something like the rotation, especially starting to come into form. And the Blake Snell thing, even though we've already discussed that, that's a big part of that. That's a big part of where things have gone wrong.
I really liked the Giants offseason. I mean, I think a lot of people did. It was hard to complain about Matt Chapman, Jorge Soler, Blake Snell, Jung-Hoo Lee, who of course is now out for the season. I want to ask you about Soler in particular. It seems like he just really hasn't gotten going at this point in the year. I see he has just a 96 OPS plus, obviously a far cry from what he was a year ago.
Yeah, I think it's been strange trying to get some answers on that. The answer that Bob Melvin has given is that he cares too much and maybe he's trying too hard. I don't know if that's the right enough of a scientific answer to explain what's going on with him, because when he's gotten a hold of one, it's like, oh, there he is. There's Jorge Soler. That's what we expected. I think he hit a home run like 470 feet or something. It was just, oh, okay. But you can see him. He's struggled, especially with runners in scoring position, and he's on the team to score some runs and get some guys home. And you can sort of see the wheels turning at the plate with him. And I think as much as we want to find some scientific reason why things have gone wrong, it does seem a little bit mental with him.
You mentioned earlier the Giants going with a bullpen game today. D-backs sort of luck out, and then they avoid Logan Webb in this series, something they they did not do back in April. He obviously pitched really well in that game. You've got on Tuesday, we have, if I can find it here, we have Kyle Harrison pitching the Tuesday game. And then we have Jordan Hicks pitching on Wednesday. Harrison is an interesting guy, being formerly a top pitching prospect. I guess you could still consider him a top pitching prospect. He's had some ups and downs this year. What have you seen from him?
I mean, he's young, but he has the mentality of he's very competitive. He's still learning who he is as a starter a little bit, and that's mostly been about getting very comfortable with having a larger menu of pitches to work with. And over the offseason or in spring training, he incorporated a changeup, and that's actually been one of his better pitches, and his slider sort of wavered. Um, and I think that he's had some great starts. He's thrown a couple low run innings and starts, and but he's learning, and that's what we're seeing from him is he's still getting his footing. He's getting comfortable with the new workload too, and um, yeah, because he's throwing a four seam. He's giving up a couple home runs off that pitch, so it's a learning experience for him.
The Giants signed Jordan Hicks and decided he was going to be a starter, and I guess it's worked. He's slated to start that Wednesday game. He has a 2.70 ERA this season. Pretty impressive, I guess, making the transition from being a reliever.
Yeah, he's been sort of the success story of the rotation so far, and it's been a little bit surprising. Not surprising, but we didn't really know what to expect from him.
Yeah.
Uh, it's an experiment, and it was you know he had a very defined identity out of the bullpen with the Cardinals, and uh, it was hard to imagine him pivoting completely into what he's become. And I think a lot of the success that he's had has to do with how quickly he was able to, I want to say, master uh, his splitter. Having that other pitch to keep guys off balance has been crucial for him in pivoting into being a starter, and sort of surprising in how his what the coaches say is that they're most surprised at how well he's been able to handle the mental shift of you're a closer, you're a reliever. It's a completely different mentality you have, but he's basically taken um, no hesitation in the preparation for being a starter. Like there's been no gap in adopting that mentality, and he's said himself that he has the most fun preparing for starts. So the seamless transition, I think, has a lot to do with the splitter, him embracing that and picking up that pitch. He had it, but he redeveloped it pretty quickly, and then the mentality part of it, and it seems like it's almost a natural fit for him.
Last thing for you, Shayna. I'm curious. The Giants obviously not in a great position at 29-31. I guess not in a terrible position either. D-backs in a similar boat, entering the series at 27-32. What do you think generally has to happen the rest of the way for the Giants to turn things around and find their way into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think if everything stays, if the roster stays as is, generally, the rotation needs to get its act together. The starters need to. They have some reinforcements on the way. Possibly, they have Robbie Ray, who's thrown in a game for the first time. I think a couple days ago, through an inning. They have Alex Cobb, who's had a couple setbacks, but he's trying to make his return. So they have reinforcements, and that could sort of help shore up the issue they have with the fifth rotation spot, and also maybe workload issues with Jordan Hicks and Kyle Harrison, because this is new terrain for them. But Logan Webb's been a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, Blake's been having his issues. I think if they want to see themselves get over the hump, it's going to be involve the rotation looking like how they expected and looking like something that can compete. The NL West is tricky, but you got the defending National League champions, you got the Dodgers, Padres are scary. You have to have some quality that separates you from the bunch. And heading into the season, that appeared to be something that could separate them from the bunch. And so far, it's been a disappointment. And that's not any one pitcher's fault. It's just sort of been a little messy. And it doesn't appear like it's out of the question that they can get it together. It just seems like it'll take a little bit longer than anticipated. And it also isn't really clear how it's going to look, how Alex Cobb is going to get back, if Robbie Ray will get back, and what he looks like when he gets back, and if Jordan Hicks can keep up what he's been doing, if Blake Snell can stop getting injured, if Logan Webb can sort of settle back into the ace role. So there's a lot that needs to happen, I think, even in just the rotation aspect of it, that will be crucial for them to really get some momentum, because they just have zero momentum in any respect.
D-backs, Giants, two teams that both have looked pretty beatable lately, both dealing with quite a few injuries. I guess we'll see what happens here over the next few days. Shayna, thanks again for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.